Welcome to another podcast by Guns and Yellow Ribbons. Enjoy the show.
Hello, welcome to Guns and Yellow Ribbons. My name is Fergus. I am your host. I'm joined tonight by, as always, Gooner Big T's back in the room, and we got the man with no flag today. We got Capo Dan. Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to 2023. And guess what? We are the Arsenal and we are top of the league. Maybe now you're going to start with Believe Us. Trev, how are you, mate? Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, Fergus, and to the two lads here and everyone else. I'm in a fantastic mood. What a weekend we've had, eh? Had a great New Year down in Brighton. Got drunk in Newhaven and decided to ring everybody I knew at about a minute past midnight, which upset quite a few people. The results have gone our way, haven't they? You know, so it's been an almost perfect weekend, really, isn't it? Can't complain, mate. Happy New Year to everyone.
Tony, Happy New Year. I know you asked me to tell everybody before we left last year to wish everybody Happy New Year. So I'm wishing you a Happy New Year and your family. How are you doing? And did you enjoy the new year?
Mate, it's been a bit of a quiet one. Obviously, as some of you boys know, Milan's not been too well. So the Christmas and New Year was a pretty quiet one compared to usual standards. But obviously, by God, the quiet one around the family was more than made up by the results in and around football for us and rivals. And it continues today with Liverpool dropping points, you know. Maybe certain results and performances that we've had this season will start getting sort of respected a bit more than just being swept under the carpet. Because places like Brighton and Brentford are not easy places to go. They haven't got the glamorous names, but this isn't FIFA and this isn't the PlayStation. And if you don't turn up at these places and earn the right to play and win, you're not going to win anymore. So, yeah, all in all, it's been brilliant.
Dan, no flag tonight. You went to Brighton. Happy New Year to me. How are you?
Yeah, good. Very good. To be fair, you'll see me nowadays floating around Essex with a big smile on my face at the moment. So just looking down on all the local West Ham, Chelsea and Spurs fans, which is very good. But yeah, New Year's good. New Year was obviously Brighton away and then Boxing Day for West Ham. So you can't get much better than that.
So, Trev.
It can't have been that good, Capo. You was in the gym about 5 o'clock in the morning, weren't you, the next day?
Mate, it was a late alcohol. I'll tell you what, Boxing Day was a rough one.
Oh, Jesus Christ, yeah. You were, no, not Boxing Day, the day after Boxing Day. You were absolutely polluted on Boxing Day. You started
Fergus was a bore. He was sober on that day.
I was ill. But I'm unbroken, Trev. I'm back on the beer. It's not very nice beer, but I'm back on the beer. Trev, what have you done on your bank holiday Monday then? Are you working today? You cracked open the captain yet?
Yeah, I've not worked today. I've had a couple of the captains. I've had to do a couple of jobs around the house to keep her indoors sweet and done that. I've had 2 or 3 captains with a drop of coke, but I've knocked it on the head now because I'm going to do a day's work tomorrow. So I'm going to sober up a bit and then get an early night when I've finished on here.
All right. And Dan, what have you been doing? Gym, I expect. Was it arms or was it abs?
Just working on the jealousy of you, like it seems, but never mind.
No, mate. My body's a temple. Well, at least the size of a temple.
Buddha, or what one is it?
Temple, ruin, same thing.
Temple.
Tony, what you been up to, mate?
If I'm honest, mate, just last couple of days, just been with the family. We had some sort of relatives over from Spain and that yesterday. So generally New Year's Day, if I'm not at Arsenal, it'll be just sort of catching up with those guys, spending it with the family. And today's just been a bit of a chilled out one, just clearing the last odds and sods before I go back to work, mate. But obviously I managed to get everything done, so I could put my feet up. So come here. I've got my son's here, right? I mean, just me and him here because the missus has gone out with a...
Come on, he's a gooner, isn't he? He's a gooner.
He's going to meet... Who they support? Are they Arsenal or Tottenham? I said, no, they're Arsenal, mate. He's going, come on, you guys.
I see yourself.
Yeah, look.
I see you.
Look. Say hello.
Hello, mate.
What do you think of Tottenham?
Little gooner.
What do you think of Tottenham? He goes, you those.
Yeah, we'll get struck off for that or something like that. But yeah, this afternoon I went over to the pub. I had a couple of Morettis, and I sat there with the Wimbledon, AFC Wimbledon assistant manager, and just having a good conversation with him to do with it was all about the transfer window and how it works and so on. I just found it fascinating, really, really interesting. Anyway, listen, enough about that. Let's talk about the Brighton game. Trevor and Dan were both at the game. The lineup that we had was Ramsdale, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko starts over Tierney, Partey, Xhaka, Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli, and Nketiah. A lineup that Dan, you wouldn't expect it anything different. The only thing that might have been different would be Tierney for Zinchenko, wouldn't you? Hello, Theo.
Yeah, to be honest, I think that's our strongest lineup, in all fairness, that we can put out at the minute. Obviously, Jesus being out. But the only thing that surprises me is that he's not played them the other way around in terms of Zinchenko at home and Tierney away. I always thought it'd be Tierney away from home a bit more solid and Zinchenko at home with a bit more freedom. But he seems to want to play Zinchenko away from home and a bit more control in the midfield. Obviously, it worked, so no complaints.
Tony, how were you with the lineup and like a fast start? We went into getting the first goal from Saka, which I have got lined up here if we want to have a look at it. But Saka scores in the second minute. But what did you make of the lineup and just the way we came to the party?
If I'm honest, with obviously City dropping points, I felt that there was a bit more added pressure on us because of everybody's waiting for us to slip up. To come out and score within, obviously 64 seconds or something, was, it's an incredible, and the celebration amongst the players, and I know we've spoke about it a lot this season, mate, the unity, the togetherness, the spirit and all this, but the celebration, there's a bit more level-headed ground. The players have seemed grounded. They seem hungry, determined. There's a lot of desire there. And even when we went 1-0 up, there was a bit of like, right, we've gone 1-0 up, let's be sensible, let's be calm. We're league leaders for a reason. We had obviously a few hairy moments, but all in all, it was a fantastic start, mate. We couldn't have asked for more. And like I say, especially with the results that had gone on before.
Trevor, this is Saka's opening goal.
Just watch Partey here. Just watch Partey here. First minute of the game. So,
a bit of space for Gabriel Martinelli. Our first sighting of him. And it's Saka. What a start for Arsenal.
First minute of the game, and Partey is not just warming up and getting into the game. He's bang on the ball there. That was a fantastic tackle, and it was a tap-in for Saka, but it was only a tap-in because he made it a tap-in. So many players in this country would have either tried to snatch it that first time and whizzed it over the bar or whatever, but he was so cool and calm, the kid. It's another one of his assets, his calmness on the ball, and slotted it in beautifully. Every podcast I say this about Bukayo Saka, and I've never regretted it once. That kid has got the world is his oyster. The world is his oyster. He is an unbelievably good talent, and of all our wonderful players we've got at the moment, we've got plenty. He's the one we don't want to lose more than anyone. He's just fantastic.
And we have contract negotiations going on with him at the moment. We've exercised Saliba's extension onto his contract, so we got him till June 2024, and we're talking to him. Dan, what did you make of Saliba in that first half? He's been a little bit rusty, especially like when we looked at West Ham and in the Brighton game, he was a little bit rusty as well. He's one of the few guys who didn't, and we talked about this in the last podcast, the players that didn't feature in the World Cup, that travelled to the World Cup, have come back more rusty than players that didn't go, like Haaland and Odegaard, etc.
Yeah, I guess there's a couple of managers have said different things, haven't they? Some have said that they feel like the players that come back from the World Cup that have played are sharper. Some have said the guys that have stayed with them are sharper. I guess if you're going out there for a month and not playing, you are a bit out of practice. But I think I'd just put it down more to the fact that he's young and he's going to make mistakes. And also, don't forget, as a centre-back, if you make a mistake, it really does get highlighted in the team. But he's got Gabriel alongside him to tidy up. And just like when Gabriel made mistakes, Saliba tidied up for him. I think it's just a good partnership, and they will clear up for each other. I don't think it's a problem for me.
Trust me, boys. Fergus, trust me. Sorry to butt in, Fergus.
That's fine.
Trust me, there is not a Premier League manager in that division that would not want William Saliba. Any team in that Premiership would grab him tomorrow if they could. They're not having him, but they could.
He's the Van Dijk of 3 or 4 years ago, but we've got him.
Well, Liverpool have substituted him at half time today. He was having a mare, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's had a bad season.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Ferg. Sorry, Tone.
No, it's fine. Tony, what I was going to come to you...
It's not fine, Ferg. It's not fine.
No, hang on.
Keep letting him apologise.
Trevor mentioned Partey and that Partey and Xhaka partnership, and Partey in particular stood out for me as an outstanding player. We talked about Ben White against West Ham, and it was hard to pick a man of the match against West Ham, and the Premier League went Odegaard, and we all picked different ones. But Partey had an exceptional game, didn't he? In that first hour at least.
I can honestly say that I was one of those players 4 or 5 years ago that was crying out for Partey when we first got linked with him. I think it was the back end of Wenger's tenure. Then we was linked with him in the summer of, I think he was one of the players that Unai Emery wanted. And I watched him so closely at Atletico Madrid, and what he done so well. And I was raving about him, and I was like, this is the player we've got to sign. Obviously, we eventually signed him, so I'm saying to everyone that this is the player we need, this is the player we need. And he's never really hit the heights that I've seen and know he's capable of. And yet he's come back from the last injury, just sort of reincarnated, just the Partey of old. And whether we finally managed to look after him in terms of his body, his injury issues. But I also think that credit needs to go to Arsenal as a club, Arteta, Edu, etc., because we've had a lot of these talented players in the past and we haven't looked after them, or there's not been the right balance for players to show their pedigree. We've now got a very happy squad, a balanced squad. So every player is standing out because they're doing a job. And the balance has always been key for me. But Partey just typifies at the moment. He's been superb the last few months, or this season. He's been immense. And I know, there's a lot of talk about who would we miss the most, Jesus and then Partey and Odegaard. I think Partey's the one player that we can't really replace, because for a couple of games, you could replace Odegaard potentially as good as he is. Or, Eddie's come in the last 2 games and replace Jesus. I just don't see. I think Lokonga's
nobody, is there? There's nobody.
Lokonga and El Neni's our squad players who can potentially play that position, and they're just, the drop off is probably the biggest out of any position. And for me, the balance between Xhaka and midfield at the moment, or actually the trio with Odegaard, is just immense at the moment. It's just working perfectly. It's just a perfect blend. And as we keep reiterating, long may it bloody continue.
You talk about Odegaard, Trevor. Let's look at this goal now. This is the Odegaard 2-0 at 39 minutes.
Saka floats it in. Gilmour got his head to it. Odegaard, it bubbles in.
So he was 6 games in 12, I think it was. He's now he's effectively a goal every other game. And I was looking, they put a stat up a couple of minutes beforehand about saying how many goals he'd scored, 6 in the league, and he'd scored a goal every other game. And I went, well, he's due a goal now. And then away we go. What a lovely goal, Trev.
Yeah. They say he hit it into the floor and he got a bit lucky, didn't they? But then they said he got a bit lucky the other night when his shot became a pass. So I don't know if it is good luck. I mean, Mesut Ozil used to finish like that, He used to bang the ball into the ground to bounce it over the goalkeeper. It used to be his party piece. So I've got no problem with Odegaard. It's cruised around the pitch yesterday like he owned the joint. It cruised around like was it yesterday or the day before? The day before, wasn't it? He improves every game, doesn't he? Martin Odegaard. He improves every game. And it's wonderful what you say about the goals came from 4 different people up front yesterday, right? And one of the pundits said it on Match of the Day, and they're bang on with it. We've got such a lovely setup at the moment, because you've got a back 4 that's solid. Then you've got Partey and Xhaka in that midfield, laying a bit deeper behind that front 4 or 5, right? And all Partey and Xhaka have got to do is win the ball and pass it to any of them. And we're away, aren't we? We are absolutely flying. Whether he gives it to Saka, Martinelli, Odegaard, or Nketiah, it doesn't matter. If Partey and Xhaka win the ball and give it to any of them 4, we immediately go from a defensive midfield player having the ball to being an attacking team with a big threat. It's wonderful to watch. It really is wonderful to watch, though.
did you notice? You mightn't in the ground, but I was watching from TV this game, and we switched from like the 4-3-3, and we flicked into a 4-1-4-1 sort of thing. So we put Eddie on point, and Partey was on front of the back four, and just like the fluidity of the sides. Dan, what did you notice about like just the formations and Partey and Xhaka and Odegaard?
I think they're just a really well balanced midfield, if I'm honest. And obviously, when they first joined Partey and Odegaard, there's an adaptation period to move into the Premier League. But I think their class is showing through now. And Partey seems to be the guy that always does drop in front of the back four. And just the speed of his passing forward to break the lines, I'd say he's probably one of the top 2 or 3 in the league at the minute. Form wise, he's right up there. And then when you've got guys like Odegaard and Xhaka finding space, he's just excelling with the players around him as well. But I think
with Odegaard, Dan, is he better than Ozil, who was the maestro?
It's a different player. A lot of people are going to criticise Ozil and say he was lazy, and I don't think you can compare their work rate. But Ozil did a lot of good in our team when he was with Sanchez. And if we didn't build on that, I think we could have built on that better as a team. And then he became a bit older, a bit out of love with the game, and a completely different player. But Odegaard is near enough an Ozil type 10 in the modern era, and he's just got brilliant work rate, brilliant vision. But he can play. I think generally he can play anywhere on that pitch. He could play as a centre forward, he could play out wide, and he could play in midfield.
Do you think he could be like a hybrid of an Ozil and N'Golo Kante? Because his technical ability is Ozil-esque, but his work rate is like, for someone who's so technically gifted, he puts in a shift for 90 minutes, week in, week out. And he covers like, and I'm not saying he is N'Golo Kante, I'm not saying he's that type of player, but in terms of covering every blade of grass, he just seems to be everywhere. And he's never, as we touched upon last week, he's never going to be a Keane or Vieira-esque captain. But he's leading by example at the moment. And he's like, do you know what? If I'm going to give 100%, I expect every one of you to give 100%. And it's brilliant to see. He's got to be in the form of his life at the moment.
Yeah. I was going to ask that question, if you really think he's justified his captain's pick, because he was really, really criticised a lot, and everyone's saying he wasn't the captain, he's not the leader of the team.
But was he being criticised by fans like me, you, and Trev and Tony, and fans in Block 5 and so on? I didn't hear much criticism of fans in the stadium and match-going fans. I did see criticism of people on Twitter and Facebook going, "Oh, he's overpassed that guy." The first game at Palace and so on, where people absolutely slagged him off. But I was at Palace that game, and I watched exactly what Tony talked about and his work rate and what he was doing off the ball, which you don't see on TV because the camera isn't following him around all the time. And I just, go on.
I don't know. I think I've heard it quite a bit in the stadium, in all fairness. The last 6 months, people's opinions have changed a lot. But even at the beginning of the season, people were getting on the backs of an awful lot of our team. I wouldn't say it's been like that from start to finish. I think that's changed in the last 6 months, and it obviously does help with the brilliant form we found. But yeah, for me, I think he's just absolutely justified being captain. As Tony said, leads by example, and he's the focal point of our team.
I get the impression, though, that the captain is someone with... I don't care about the old man anymore, I get the impression the captain was also picked without an armband. There's a player in our squad that's more of our captain, but I think because of going over old ground... He won't wear the armband.
And to be honest, that man has stepped up to the
I think he's the team leader, personally.
Well, we've seen on the documentary what he's done at Newcastle and so on, and I do get it. And I think probably politically it's not viable to have him now, maybe next season, but then why would you?
You don't need to add any pressure to his game, though, do you?
No, you don't. Trev, your thoughts on this, because you tried to get in a couple of times before you're rudely interrupted.
Well, firstly, I think we should leave the comparisons with Ozil behind, because I don't think that's fair to Martin Odegaard. I think that what's gone is gone, and it's unfair on Martin Odegaard to do that. I don't quite agree with Dan. I've not been at that many games at home, but nothing comes to mind about Odegaard getting much stick this season. I know that people doubted him last season, but I think this season he's proved all his doubters wrong. And as his goal proved against Brighton day before yesterday, he's got what several players in our team have got right up front. These young players, he's got that knack of finding a space in the opposition penalty area. Right, look at the time he had to put that ball in the net against Brighton. And Saka can do it, and Smith Rowe can do it when he's in the side. Martinelli not so much, because Martinelli tends to charge in the box with the ball at his feet, But Odegaard is a complete player, and he's. I think that Arteta said it, didn't he, in his interview? He's a perfect captain for the job, because we've got lots of voices. We've got the Xhakas, and we've got the Rob Holdings. We've got the wise old heads of voices. We've got this influence of Odegaard. He's leading by example this season. And for me, he's done nothing wrong nothing wrong at all, mate.
Another player that's coming.
I hope he doesn't come back to bite me on the backside, this comment, but recent years, we've really struggled with captains that are a proper captain, that love the club, that want to be at the club and want to be there for a long period of time. And we've had captains that have had behavioural issues and haven't been a good image for the club. I feel like he's a very good captain brand-wise for the club. I think he's very good captain for the club in terms of leading by example. And I hope he's also a captain that will be here for the long term and will see us from the start to the finish of a project and not...
I think he will. I think he will, Dan. You also have to remember he's captain for his country at like such a young age as well. Captain for your country is a huge thing. That your national manager is going to put you as a captain. He clearly has something that we can't see because we don't see him every day. And like what Tony talked about, saying like he's not necessarily your screamer, your shouter, like but a fire underneath you sort of thing. He leads by example. He leads by doing what he does on the pitch. And I'm an utter professional, I would expect. Somebody else who has come into some amount of criticism by some, including myself to a little bit, is Eddie Nketiah. But Eddie's gone 2 games since he come back, since we started back from the World Cup, and 2 goals. Here's his goal.
Lots of ability. Speaking of which, here's Martinelli. Up against Lamptey, drawing the save. But that's not enough. And Eddie Nketiah. Well, he won't get too many simpler than that. But the numbers are good.
So, Trev, natural poacher's goal, isn't it?
Yeah, he's doing exactly what we want our centre forward to do, isn't he? He's got much more to his game than that, and he's pressuring people. He's putting himself all over the park, and now just recently he started adding goals to that. So he's doing exactly what we couldn't ask any more of him. We can't ask any more of the young lad. He's playing up front and he's scoring goals. He's scoring goals more regularly than Gabriel Jesus was, and we love Jesus. We watch him and we love him. So there's no reason why we shouldn't love Eddie. He's doing perfectly at the moment. He's doing exactly what the Arsenal need.
Tony, 12 and 12 for Eddie.
I think, do you know what? We've seen 2 goals in 2 games from Nketiah and 2 completely different goals. We saw a superb finish to a team move, the movement, the strength, the determination against West Ham. And then we've seen what we've all thought he was, a poacher against Brighton. It only bodes well for us. And, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm his biggest fan. I thought there's a lot of things that he needs to improve on if he's going to get better and certainly push us forward. But you can't ask for what he's done. He's come into the team. He's got 2 in 2. Look, let's just back him, and hopefully this is the confidence booster that he needs going into a big run of obviously Newcastle, Oxford, Tottenham, etc. And like Trev said, I think last week on the podcast, we want to have the hope that when Jesus is back fully fit, he ain't walking into the team, because if that happens, then it bodes well for the club.
Absolutely.
I don't think he is, to be honest with you. I think as soon as Jesus is back, if Eddie keeps up his form exactly as it is now, I don't think Jesus gets back in that side straight away. The way he's playing.
You may well be right, Dan. I personally think he will be dropped back to the bench again. I think how Arteta is managing him and managing the PR around him, every time he's been questioned and interviewed about him, he's singing his praises, and I think that's been really good. Listen, we're 3-0 up. 60 minutes into the game, we're dominating it. Brighton make 2 substitutions. They take off Lallana and Tossard for Samiento and Ferguson, a young lad of 18, 19 years of age. But we also make 2 substitutions. Trev, we talked about this briefly on New Year's Day when we had a chat. We took off Ben White and Zinchenko and brought Tierney and Tomiyasu on. And I said to you that I thought the timing was a bit... You also said the timing was probably a bit premature, but that we done that substitution at the same time they'd done their substitution. It was almost like 4 subs because they got 2 fresh legs come on as attacking, and we got 2 defenders who need to just bed themselves into the game and feel, okay, yes, we're 3-0 up. But was it a poor decision by Arteta?
I will never ever criticise Mikel Arteta, but from where he's taken us, he's worked miracles. He's worked fantastically. But in the ground, when he made the substitutions, I looked at the clock and there was 59 minutes gone, and I thought, we're 3-0 up and we're bringing on 2 of the highest quality defenders in the country. In Tomiyasu and Tierney, we really are bringing on 2 superstar defenders that would walk into any team. But I just had it in my head that you're bringing on great players, but they've got to get into the rhythm of the game. They've got to get into the movement of the game. And I just thought 2 of them at the time, it was a little bit early. And I felt very sorry for Ben White, because Ben White was playing absolutely fantastically again. But, you could see maybe Arteta was thinking 3-0 up. We're going to give a couple of good players a few minutes, keep them happy. And Tierney and Zinchenko have both been prone to injuries, haven't they? So he's probably thinking, if I can give 1 60 minutes and 1 half an hour, it might be an opportunity to keep them both fit. So I can see why he'd done it. I'm not knocking him, but in my head, I just thought that was a little bit too early for me.
Tony, what did you think about the double substitution? And tied with the fact that they made double substitutions with attacking players as well?
I honestly didn't see a problem with it. I think just like Trev said there, you got 2... It's not like we were bringing on pony players. We were bringing on 2 excellent, top-class fullbacks with international experience. 60 minutes gone, 59, 60 minutes gone, I didn't see an issue with it. Didn't really think Tierney had too much of a problem. I thought we'd done okay. Tomiyasu, though, on the other end, he looked really rusty. But the biggest problem wasn't necessarily when we brought them 2 on. It's then when we took Partey off, we seemed to just lose shape. And I'm not criticising El Neni. I'm not, sitting here slagging anyone off. But then to take Partey off, Partey and Ben White, I think people have got to start putting respect on Ben White's name, because I don't think people realise just how good he is, and it has been for Arsenal. He is immense.
Yeah, he's outstanding. But before we took Partey off, we conceded a goal as well. The Japanese international, is it Mitiyamo, scored on the 65th minute, and then 10 minutes later we did take Partey off. Dan, what did you think about taking Partey off then, like what Tony was talking about?
I can see why he did it, because I think he's trying to get minutes into some of the team's legs. I think it was a bit early, in all fairness. I think it was a bit early, but...
You would have thought at 3-0 up, it should be cruising. So hence the 2 substitutions with the right backs, left backs, and giving them minutes. But then when we concede a goal from a mistake in the midfield, to take off the midfield general in Partey, just seems like...
Ferg, there's 2 extreme ways of looking at it, isn't there? If you put it like you just did, we're 3-0 up, we're cruising, you understand the players he took off were the ones that have been prone to an injury, right? Partey, White, Zinchenko, get them off. They've been prone to injury. We've won the game. Let's make it, we're happy. He wants to know that Brighton were going to step it up. And they did step it up a level. When they scored that first goal, it really seemed to liven them up a bit, But we did miss Partey when he went off. It was it was a big miss. But I think we need to, if we're going to have to see the Martinelli goal now, Ferg, because we're going to go back to that man Odegaard, aren't we?
Yeah, well, but the Martinelli goal, we've gone 4-1. We've gone 3-1 down, and Martinelli comes back with this one.
Odegaard, quelle ouverture pour Martinelli. Martinelli en vitesse, en 1 contre 1 devant Sanchez. Martinelli incroyable passe d'Odegaard. Superbe finition de Martinelli. Et de nouveau, Arsenal s'envole par la grâce de ce
I don't know how much French you know, but I'll tell you what, that was very, very complimentary. The speed of Martinelli, the new Arsenal, he's the new guard. There was lots being said in there, and it was all very, very complimentary Arsenal. Go on then, talk about the Martinelli goal then, Trev.
Oh, mate, we missed it on a clip, didn't we? Right? I was watching Odegaard. He got the ball, right, and he first timed it 50, 60 yards up the field. And Martinelli didn't even have to break stride. It went behind the defender. He didn't have to break stride. There it is. Look, Martinelli's, look at the pace of it. Martinelli hasn't had to speed up or slow down. It's just fell onto his toe. And Martinelli was lucky he finished that because he should have squared it to Saka, really. But, for the first, as Martinelli made that run, I wasn't watching him for a couple of seconds because I was just still looking at Odegaard in admiration of the ball he just played. I couldn't believe he'd seen that pass so quickly. Unbelievable. Brilliant.
Tony?
Whilst I agree with what Trev just said there, I did find the French commentator far more sexier when he was saying it. He said it with a more... it's a majestic pass. It's an artist with the finest of brushes.
Quelle ouverture pour Martinelli. Martinelli en vitesse, en 1 contre 1 devant Sanchez.
He's Kevin De Bruyne-esque. It's an unbelievable pass, and he is starting to get the credit he deserves because Odegaard's been immense this season. I mean, even the little nutmeg in the middle when after about 3 minutes, I think it was to Martinelli who decided to cut it back. We were rampant at times at Brighton, and then everything was just with Odegaard. He was just pulling the strings, the orchestra.
Dan, so we're now 4-1 up. Young Ferguson, we make the substitution, take Partey off and put El Neni on, and then Ferguson, he's only 18, he gets a goal and brings it up to 4-2. But then at 4-3, there was a disallowed goal by VAR. And to be honest, I thought it was a correct decision, but a harsh decision because the guy's running back from an offside position, not to interfere with play and so on. Go talk us through that one then.
I mean, for me, you're either on or you're off. But I think it saved us for a very, very tricky last few minutes of that game because Brighton are a good side, and that's why we all said before the game, this is going to be a tough game. We haven't got the best results recently against Brighton, and they're a very, very good side. We wasn't put under pressure as much because of that, and I think we got away with one, and definitely helped out the team. So, sort of vision of 4-4 at Newcastle could have happened, I think, but glad it didn't. So,
no, I agree. Listen, we went on to win the game 4-2, and other results, as we've said at the beginning of this, have worked in our favour. And again, tonight, Liverpool dropping points to Brentford, City dropping points, Tottenham dropping points, Chelsea dropping points. The stars are aligned. And we had a little bit of a chat beforehand, and we said, could it almost, and Trev, you can go back to us on this one, we're 7 points clear. Is it the luck that Leicester got?
Fergus, fancy saying that to me now after we spoke before the programme.
That's why I'm asking you, because I want you to say the same thing we talked about.
It's nothing like Leicester. We're a side that's been off the ball for a few years, but we're proven winners long term. We win trophies, and this year we've sorted out our woes from the last 3 or 4 seasons, and we're looking really, really good. I'm not going to say anything of what we're going to do at the end of the season because I'm not tempting fate. You know me. I can't look that far ahead, but we are looking so good. And Fergus, the goal wasn't disallowed at 4-3, my mate. The goal was disallowed at 4-2. It was never 4-3. And I'm so pleased it was disallowed, Fergus, because you know me that well. If it had been 4-3 with 4 minutes to go, where would I have been watching the game? I'd have been off down the concourse and watching it on the telly because my nerves can't handle it. But
any excuse for a beer.
Yeah, but we are just looking so good. I've seen some people still trying to get a bit leery on Twitter, and whereas in the past they used to as supporters, now they just immediately laughed at and shouted down. If if you're not happy at the moment as an Arsenal fan, you give it in, go and support someone else, because you ain't never going to be happy with the Arsenal. We are absolutely superb.
Trev, in fairness, you sent me this video. This is from after the game, and you're talking about the way the fans are. You said how the relationship between the players and the fans has developed. The players, the manager, and all the staff came to the Arsenal fans after the game at Brighton, and unlike a few years ago, there was clearly some mutual respect, and they stood applauding the fans for up to 5 minutes. And I'll show you this video clip, and you can have a chat. Trev, Dan, both go on this one.
I need to thank my beautiful wife for that video, because I was too busy celebrating, but she videoed it, and I'm so pleased she did. I don't know what you saw.
The other video she sent me, I can't show.
Well, you're just jealous of me. But the Dan, I'll take 10 seconds, then get your view, mate, because the players come over and
that's what the missus said.
Connection. There was such a connection.
That was twice, right? Tony.
I can't hear what he's saying, thankfully. There was such a connection between the players and the fans at Arsenal now. It was the players didn't want to leave the pitch, and the fans didn't want to leave the stadium. It was just that good after. They were just so happy, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful to see it. And in the end, they had to leave the pitch. And as they were walking off, they started singing the Granit Xhaka song, the Arsenal fans, and Xhaka came back, and you could see he was emotionally attached to what they were singing. It's such a turnaround. That is your example, the Xhaka fans. The Xhaka fans relationship is your prime example of where we are now. The massive turnaround. You couldn't get more of 100% turnaround than that Xhaka fan relationship, and it runs through the whole team. It was amazing. I don't know if you stayed in the ground for long after, Dan, but it was wonderful, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was there right until they left as well. And I think the thing that made it better was, don't forget, it's New Year's Eve, and a lot of people had to shoot off and had other plans to go out afterwards and to do things with family and to even get back to London. And everyone still stayed. The majority of fans were there, clapping, singing, and the momentum is building in even the songs of "We're top of the league" or "We're going to win the league," and it is getting louder and louder. And
now you're gonna believe us, and now you're gonna believe us.
It's getting louder. You know, alongside Conte, are you listening? But we'll save that one for another time. But no, I think the Xhaka point is spot on. And in all honesty, beginning of the season, if you asked me, would I ever be singing a song about Xhaka, I would have said not a chance in hell. And even I'm joining in with that one now. So the fans are right behind them, and the players are loving it, and it's boosting the performance. I would say, as fans, we've contributed a few points to that team this season as well.
Tony,
we have.
Give me a retard from Tottenham. Back to the World Cup, and his name's Harry Kane. Give me a retard from Tottenham. Back to the World Cup, and his name's Harry Kane.
Loads of songs going around. Did that one get going?
Just please wait till after we've played them or while we're playing them, because I don't want his luck to change against us. It shouldn't, should it? Because on form, we are like streets ahead of them. They're not even close to us.
No, form goes out in the derby, though.
Yeah, it does, mate. I hate it.
Always has been.
I don't look forward to it, Tone. I hate it.
It's one of the biggest, the excitement, the buzz, but then of a flip of a coin, it's the worst, because if you can guarantee that you're going to win, it's your best day of the season, probably. And if you lose, it's your worst day. So, look, as an Arsenal, I've had a lot more good days and bad days, but there has been a few bad days in recent seasons. And we owe them one. We owe them one big time. Them and the officials, because we got royally stitched up from start to finish in all aspects of the game earlier in the year, or last season.
Yes.
So we owe them in a couple of weeks, big time. Look, listen, let's hope Harry Kane gets a booking in the next game or so, and he gets ruled out of that one.
Listen,
No.
Nobby's put up on there that he loves the song. I've been taking down the Christmas tree decorations and stuff today, and guess what I was humming the whole time?
Gimme a retard from Tottenham. That's at the World Cup and his name's Harry Kane. Gimme a retard from Tottenham. That's at the World Cup and his name is Harry
Kane. Oh,
Just,
honestly,
just
it's like a
imagine,
earworm.
I said it before, but just imagine we won the league in the same year that Harry Kane knocked his country out of the World Cup. It'd be fucking unbelievable.
Guys, listen, we've got a huge game on tomorrow. We're playing Newcastle under the lights at the Emirates. Listen, normally I'd say that's, a middle of the road game, but Newcastle under the new management of Eddie Howe have been doing really, really well. Key players you got to look at. You got Almiron and Joe Linton. Almiron has scored 9 goals. Joe Linton is, up there with Guimaraes and Trippier defensively. They're a really strong team. Trev, you're not going to be able to make it due to train strikes. Christ, even if when you are available, the old railway go on strike for you. So how's your luck?
I'm back for Man United, mate. I'm definitely back for Man United. Mate, this game tomorrow night, we talked about it previously, didn't we, lads? All four of us. And this game tomorrow night, in my view, is going to be our most sternest test of the season so far. Newcastle have lost 1 game all season. They've drawn 7, admittedly, but they're really hard to beat. Really hard to beat. And Eddie Howe's worked wonders there. On our form, we should brush them aside if we're on top form. And let's hope we do. But it ain't going to be anywhere near the walkover that some, not all, but some Arsenal fans have been saying. No chance, boys. We've got a right game on our hands tomorrow. Just remember what they did to us up at their place at the end of last season. They played really well against us and turned us over. So we owe them one, and let's hope it's tomorrow, Ferg.
I agree. I think they also worked the crowd against us as well, and we'd lost a bottle at Spurs and so on. But Dan, looking at this, the Trev talks about the form. We're 5 wins, and they're 4 wins and a draw. And the draw against Leeds was probably against the run of play. Our recent meetings against each other, the beaters, as we set up in Newcastle at the last game of the season, we beat them 2-0, 2-0, 3-0, and 4-0. So, as I said when we started this topic, normally I'd go, it's a middle of the road game, we should get the 3 points. But what are you expecting, Dan?
I'm expecting 3 points.
Are you going to be sober?
Don't know. I'm halfway between.
Yeah,
I'm getting the train down, so yeah, we'll be on the sherbets.
I'll probably be there for about 6:30 for anyone that wants to be there and join in, and we can sing any song that Tony sings. But yeah, I do believe it will be a tough game. I think you're spot on there, Trev. I think defensively they're a very solid team. I think it's 11 goals they've conceded this season, so I'm not expecting it to be easy. I do think they'll sit in a bit more. I think we'll be the dominant team, but I think if we get an early goal, I do think we'll win it. I do think we'll win it anyway. I think not down to the fact that Newcastle are a tough side, but because of our own ability and how good we are, and we're at home, and our record at home has been unbelievable recently. So I think back our own ability that we will beat them. Not to say they're not a tough side.
Tony, we're the only Premier League side this season to be invincible at home. We've only lost to Man United away. Well, it was VAR away more than anything else. What are you expecting tomorrow?
If I'm honest, boys, exactly the same as what you boys have just said. I think Newcastle are tough nut to crack this season. I think defensively they've got the best record in the league, so they're pretty stingy in terms of obviously gifting goals. I do think though, like Dan, if we score early, I think we will win. I think we will edge it anyway. A bit like you said, Ferg, that the home crowd is playing a massive part to our season this season, to this campaign. I think we're all pulling in the same direction. So the players are, potentially we're their drug. They're feeding off of us. We're feeding off of them, and I think we'll nick a win tomorrow. Like the boys, I'm not so sure it's going to be sort of 2-3-0 like other people are making out, but I think we'll nick the 3 points. And listen, if we take 7 points from the next 9, then no one can argue with that.
And so, if I was to ask you a score, what would you say, Tony?
What I've just said 2-0. I'm going to go 2-1 or 2-0. I know I've just said about 2 or 3-0. I'll go 2-1.
Dan?
I'm going to go for 3-0. I actually do think we're going to have I'm not saying it's going to be that sort of game, but I think we'll win it by a few goals.
Trev?
Capo.
Trev, unmute yourself. What are you going for?
I've just been talking away, praising Dan, and he's never heard me because I was on mute. Dan, I hope you're right, mate, but I'm more with Tony and with Heath here. I think we're going to win it by the odd goal, 1-0 or 2-1. I'm going to go 2-1.
I'm going to go. I think there's going to be lots of goals in this game because I think Newcastle are a good side, and they're able to score a goal and so on. I'm going to go 3-2, but 3-2 for Arsenal. Obviously, to be honest, it could go either way, but I'm clearly going to go Arsenal first on there. One of the other things we're looking at, and it follows on from the Brighton game, is yellow cards. Saliba and Saka are on 4 yellow cards. Tony, Trev, Dan, you said I'm incorrect on this fact, but maybe Tony and Trev can corroborate or discount it. But if they get a 5th yellow card, they get a 1-game ban, does that carry into the FA Cup?
I've always believed it did, but I see a tweet today to say there's something in the Premier League rules that were recently changed, which meant it would actually be the league game. I can't confirm either way, but it's always been the cup games, like the FA Cup say. But I see a tweet today and it read that it wouldn't be Oxford. So it's something that probably we'd all need to look up or read on the club website, maybe.
So on that basis, you got Saliba and Saka. You've got to start both those players. If they get a card, they're missing the Tottenham game.
3 points at a time. I think first game first, and that's Newcastle, and then see what happens after that.
Take each game as it comes. Yeah, I agree.
Trev, do you know anything different? Do you think Dan and Tony are probably right then? With it doesn't carry into the FA Cup, it goes straight into the league.
Would not have a clue, mate. Would not have a clue. All I know is that it worries me greatly that we may lose 2 of our most influential players for the last game we want them to miss. So let's hope it all works out okay. But I haven't got a clue what game it is, mate. Wouldn't have the faintest.
Listen, just remember though, Tottenham are in a similar situation with Harry Kane. Harry, I kicked the ball over the goal, Kane.
Do you mean the retard from Tottenham?
Give me a retard from Tottenham. That's at the World Cup and his name's Harry Kane.
That one.
That's the one. He's on 4 bookings as well. So he's, they've got a similar situation with him. And trust me, we could potentially make do with not having Saka for 1 game. They've got their main man. They're relying on him and him only at the moment.
Okay. One other topic I want to talk about, like Arteta, it was before the Brighton game, but he was 3 years in charge this month last year in December. And I got this table sent to me, which was quite interesting. So we look at this table here. We've got Manchester City, Liverpool and Arsenal. This is the Premier League table from the day Arteta started till not the last game, but the previous game. 200 points after 110 games. Considering we were 8th in the league and we're 5th in the league and out of Europe and so on, that's pretty impressive. Wouldn't you say, Dan, of how Arteta has kept us up there, ahead of Tottenham, ahead of Man United, ahead of Chelsea, Leicester, who've been on fire, West Ham, who've had a great resurgence in the last couple of years, but we're up there, and brilliant. What's your thoughts?
I don't like that table. I prefer this year's one because it puts us at the top.
We've got that in a minute.
No, I think spot on. I saw another stat in the 1920 season. We had 14 wins from 38 games, and we've already had 14 wins in 16 games this season. So that just shows the progression that we've had under Arteta, and everything he's tried to put in behind the scenes is now coming out on the pitch.
And we look at like 2003, 2004. There was the 1990 or 1991 season where we lost 1 game against Chelsea and we nearly went invincible under George Graham, wasn't it?
1991 season, we lost to Chelsea.
Bloody Chelsea, yeah.
We had half the team out injured as well. It was that was a very special. That's worth a whole podcast on its own. That 1991 team. So
one of the most underrated teams going, Trev.
Once again, I didn't hear you. Fortunately, what was that?
I said they were one of the most underrated teams going. One of the most underrated title winners of all time, I think.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more, mate. They were a very special team in 1991, the Arsenal.
And we'd all agree to saying that the 2003, 2004, 16 games in, we'd scored 30 goals, 19 goal positive, finishing on 38 points. We won that season invincible. We are the only team that went a whole season unbeaten and carried on to 49 games undefeated. If we look at this season, look at this. 16 games in, 14 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss, robbed. 40 goals, 26 positive, and 43 points. You're looking at 5 more points. You're looking at 7 more goals. It's definitely got to be progress, Tony.
Yeah, it is, mate. It's the progress is for all to see. I mean, I said from the start with Arteta that it's like having a chef in a kitchen. If he hasn't got the tools and the ingredients, you're not going to be able to be making top end food and selling it at high end prices. Arteta didn't have the ingredients to start with. He had certain players in the team who didn't want to do the work. He slowly built up. And if you look at now, this is as close to his team as we're going to get. And it's for all to see. Like, even if we don't win the league this season, the progress is there. We get Champions League. It's another step. And all of a sudden, a bit like Trev alluded to earlier, all of a sudden, all the rumours are about players wanting to join Arsenal, prefer the project, prefer the road that Arsenal want to take. Football works in cycles, and it always has done. It always has done for as long as football's been around. You have periods, you have cycles. I'm not saying Liverpool's and Man City's are coming to an end, but I feel like we're about to enter our cycle again. And whether we're dominant and obviously it's filled with trophies, who knows? But I've certainly enjoyed the ride this season, and long may it continue.
I've loved the ride for the 3 seasons. Even when we're at our lowest ebbs, I could see some improvement. Trev, do you think, looking at that stat from the Invincibles and this stat from this season, is there an argument to say that Arteta, okay, he hasn't got the trophies and hasn't had the time under his belt, but he's as good, if not possibly, potentially better than Wenger?
You can't. We shouldn't. Let me finish, Ferg. We shouldn't even be thinking about that or raising that comparison, because I think that's unfair on Mikel Arteta at this stage of his career. Let's look at where we were, right? We spoke about it before, but if we're going down this road, we've got to think about it again, right? Arsene Wenger, as much as we love him and we love what he did for our club, he left us in a mess, right? There is no getting away from that. Mikel Arteta left Arsenal Football Club in a real mess, right?
Wenger,
Unai Emery came in, and Unai Emery, as I've stated on here before, and I'll continue to state, is a quality manager. And he tried to do a job, but he had absolutely no support upstairs, right? He had nothing up above him, and no support. He had an owner that wasn't going to spend any money, and he had people who were just signing dead Chelsea players or finished up players to give them a final payday, right? So I felt for Unai Emery. So Mikel Arteta has come into a club that is in dread, right? We were still finishing, we were just outside Europe and we were in the top half of the league. But for the big club we are, that wasn't acceptable. Mikel Arteta has done the most fantastic job, not only with what he had to deal with in the club, he had to get the right people above him. He had to get the owner on side. And I'm sure that the protests outside the stadium kick-started our owners. I'm positive about that, right? And Mikel Arteta has gone about it in stages. He's gone down saying he had a plan, and that plan was to bring us up to where we are now. But to finish, right, he didn't just have all that within the club to deal with. He didn't have a club in turmoil with no one above him willing to help. He had the fans on his back as well. Not me, not you, Ferg, but he had a lot of fans on his back who expected him to come into Arsenal Football Club, flick a switch, and overnight we're going to be European champions.
Yeah, but
those fans now should be eating their humble pie and giving their apologies just as loudly as they had a go at him. Right? They've all gone into hiding. They should be out there now rolling their hands up because he's brilliant.
There was one very vocal one, a friend of ours, Dan Potts, and I've since been in contact with him and said, do you now trust the process? Do you now believe in the process? And he's 110% balls deep in it now. He loves it. But as you said, why criticise it early on when you know it takes some time? Dan, John Malone is saying you've been quiet tonight. You're normally singing on the tube. Speak up. Come on. What's your thoughts on this?
I was singing on the way home to Brighton. Actually, I got in the train at Brighton, and I got in the train going the opposite direction, so I was going back through Lewis. And as I got on, I'm surrounded by Brighton fans, and we had a good sing song in the end. Some of them actually enjoyed it, some probably not so much, but I was singing there, so don't worry about that. I think there's a lot to digest from that. I think firstly, it's very, very unfair to compare the greatest manager in our history to someone that's in the middle of a process that's now going very, very well. I'd argue that Unai Emery left us in a worse position than Wenger, Trev. I think
you can argue all you
want. I think Unai Emery was massively out of his depth with a club that was bigger than what he can handle. And I think you'll see he will do very, very well with Aston Villa. But I think that's his level. And I don't think it's fair to say that we're a club that didn't spend money, because we've spent an awful lot of money over the last few years in the Wenger era towards the end, in Unai's era, and also in Arteta's era. I just feel like Unai couldn't handle the big egos like Arteta has.
I think Unai inherited a shit show as well, though, and
he did. I'm not saying he didn't inherit a fantastic squad. He inherited a squad that was a little bit sort of a bit lazy and thought they were better than they were, and been near enough sort of mollycoddled from a coach towards the end of his career. But I think certainly the players he got rid of and what he brought in reduced the quality of our squad from when he came in to when he left. But what is interesting, I think, if you look at the invincible start after 16 games and what we are now, I always thought that our issue currently was going forward and scoring goals, because we were very pretty, lots of sort of U-shaped passing and a bit of a lack of a cutting edge and scoring goals. Whereas this year, that hasn't been the case. You know, we've had, 7 goals now in the first 2 games back after the break. And that squad has scored 10 goals more over 16 games than a squad containing Henry, Bergkamp, Pires and Lundberg. And that's quite crazy to compare, considering that side at that period was breaking records from scoring in sort of every single game, like consecutively away from home, and was one of the best attacking teams of its time.
Some interesting.
I've got to respond to that, Ferg. Because as much as I agree with a lot of what Dan says, Unai Emery took a team of players that had got Arsene Wenger the sack, right? That squad had got Arsene Wenger the sack, and he took them. Unai Emery immediately noticed what the problem was within that squad, and he tried to drop Mesut Ozil, and they wouldn't let him drop him. The powers that be above twisted Unai Emery's arm, and he had to bring Ozil back into the fold. And Emery took that squad, that disjointed squad, on a 22-game unbeaten run, and he also somehow, I don't know how, got them to the Europa League final. And who was the player? He was let down by a few players in that Europa League final, but who was the player that let him down the most? Mesut Ozil, the player who he tried to get rid of in the first place anyway. You know? So, yeah, I can see your point, Dan, but there's a massive 2 sides to that story, mate. A massive 2 sides to that story.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can agree to disagree on that. But I also think, what's the difference between Unai and Mikel now, in terms of Mikel got rid of Ozil, got rid of Aubameyang, and there was big calls from the fans, the media, to say to Arteta, you're doing the wrong thing. You need to bring Aubameyang back in. You shouldn't have isolated him, but he didn't, and he stuck with his guns. Unai, for whatever reason, had his opinion changed. Whether it's the board putting pressure on him, the board had a conversation with Arteta and saying, look, we need to bring him back into the squad, but it didn't happen. And I just feel like they're 2 completely different men. I'll
tell you the difference, Dan. I'll tell you the difference, right? The difference, plain to see. Unai Emery was a head coach. Excuse me. Mikel Arteta is a manager. Mikel Arteta has got Edu and an owner that's thoroughly behind him, putting money into the club, and he's got a coaching staff that are supported by the club. Unai Emery had none of that. Unai Emery didn't have an Edu. He got given the players that he got given. He was a head coach, and all the players he was given were people that were on their last legs coming in from other clubs, because certain people in the club, in my opinion, were putting money in pockets before putting quality players into our club, and it was wrong and it was upsetting. And it was a great day when that lot upstairs were cleared out. I could see why you've got your opinion, Dan, but you won't change my opinion on an Emery. I think he was a thoroughly decent man. He did a great job with what he had. And if he'd have had the support that Mikel Arteta had, who knows? Having said that, I wouldn't swap Arteta for anyone now.
I do think that anybody coming into that job, a bit like Moyes at United after Fergie, anybody coming into that job after Wenger was a
poison chalice.
Yeah, absolutely, Tony. Listen, Terry in the chat has sent me a message. This is the yellow card situation, so I don't know if you can see it, but if you get 5, it's 1 match ban and it's Premier League. It doesn't carry into the FA Cup. So we've had it clarified that if they get a yellow card tomorrow night or the following Sunday, he won't carry till the Man United game. But once the 19 games are played, which is the Man United game, they all get wiped off and we start again. The table as it stands is here. Arsenal are 43 points, 16 games. We're 8 points ahead of Newcastle with a game in hand over them. We're 7 points ahead of Man City. We're 11 points ahead of 4th place United, 13 points ahead of Tottenham. Liverpool are even, that's 15 points. And then you're looking at Brentford. It's unbelievable reading how well Arsenal are doing at the moment. And listen, I'm not disbelieving it, but it's just fantastic to see. One other thing that popped up on Twitter, and I think Tony shared this. A true Arsenal fan, apparently. Go on, Tony, talk to us.
I just see it pop up earlier today. I don't know when the picture was taken, but I sent I'd have to try and find it. He done a podcast. Well, I think why he was a Tottenham fan.
Who is it for people on audio, by the way?
Kulusevski for the Arsenal fan currently playing for Tottenham. Or occasionally he plays for Tottenham. But I watched an audio. I got sent an audio of a podcast. I'll have to try and find it and send it to you. And he pretty much said he was an Arsenal fan. He said, and as people know, it's a dream of mine to play for, a certain club, before I retire and all that. He said, but it wouldn't go down. It wouldn't go down well at the moment or something. With a smile, and obviously my Tottenham mates, I soon sent it to them. But obviously I don't know when the picture was taken, but why everything's going well for Arsenal. It's always good just to stir the pot and wind that up down the road a bit more.
Would we want him?
To be fair, if he's available, I'd let him come in to clean sack his boots.
Midfield player. He does make them tick. When he's on form, he does make them tick. Right, guys, that's us done. Tomorrow night, Block 5, Block 6, you'll see me and Dan around between 6:30 and 7 o'clock, like about 7-ish. And we'll be trying to get some songs going. So if you're in the North Bank, come and see us. And just bring your singing voice. Don't have to bring beer, just bring your singing voice.
Tony, have you got any songs?
What's that?
Has Tony got any songs?
Give me a retard from Tottenham. That's at the World Cup and his name's Harry Kane. Give me a retard from Tottenham. That's at the World Cup and his name's Harry Kane.
Best thing about it, I keep getting praised and it weren't even my song.
Missing it, Hilsey. Missing it. Sorry, mate.
We are the Arsenal back with a capital T. We're back. Enjoy it. We should all have smiles on our faces. I've not stopped smiling for weeks now. Even if we lose a couple of games, I'll still be smiling because you know what? We'll still be top of the league and we'll still be improving. We are Arsenal.
We should be humble. We should enjoy it, but be humble and remember that football can turn very quickly. So let's just enjoy the moment. Don't let anyone take that away from us. But let's not gloat or get too arrogant or cocky, because football sometimes has a tendency to bite you on your backsides, and we don't want that to happen to us. We want to keep our feet on the ground. And Mikel Arteta summed it up perfectly when they asked him in the interview at the weekend, "Are you happy?" He said, "I walked in that change room, no players weren't happy. We've just won. We've gone 7 points clear, and they're all finding fault now that they've got big improvements to make." That to me shows that the team and the manager are focused. So as fans, we should do the same.
So that we're going to win the league.
Don't get big-headed. Don't get.
We're going to leave you after this one. Thanks very much, everybody.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Sing along if you know. As I walk these streets alone, through this bar I call home, upon the barren fields of ivory, beneath the stadiums of stone, through the turnstiles of the angel, see the homeless on the green, from the Cali to the cross, and every shit zone between. Past the church, the mosque cracked then, and the offie on the corner. See the brasses from the brothel that pretends to be a stormer. Watch the bedlam in the bookies, see the winners and the losers seeking solace from their sorrow in the local battle cruisers. Through the madness in the market, where the faces turn to Greek. Hello, brother, how's your mother? You're outside me like a geezer. Double buy a mass and liquor, a double rose helium chat, or watch retired gangsters bicker. Every day an office chat. The little fuckers causing trouble for the causes make you smile. You meet your muckers for a couple, forget your troubles for a while. From the full nil to the hemi, all the faces are the same. Cause the manner might be changing, but the people still remain. You ready?
There we go, a bit of Lewis Dunford. Thank you very much, Tony, Dan and Trevor. I've really enjoyed this. It's been a nice hour and 8 minutes, most of it, with some of your songs, Tony. Thanks very much. Are you there tomorrow, mate?
You talking to me, mate? Sorry, you just cut out then. You was, I didn't know whether you had a mutter or stutter. I'm there tomorrow, yeah, mate. So I'll see you at some point in the ground. Just make sure you got a beer ready for me.
I will do. I'm drinking this game, so that's all right. Dan, see you tomorrow, mate. Bring your flag. Bring your drink.
Well, if Big T wants to jump up and sing that song, I'll give him the flag tomorrow.
I'll just follow the noise and find you.
Oh, Christ. Like the last time, I had him beside me. It's so hard going to football when I'm sober, and he's very much not.
I'm no different.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah, Trev, thanks very much, mate. Have a great day. Enjoy watching the football from afar, and I'll see you at Tottenham. I'll see you at Oxford, actually, and Tottenham and Man United. So I'll see you for the next 3 games afterwards.
I'll be at Oxford. I'll be at Man U. I'll be at Tottenham. And everyone watching, right? Tony is exactly right. We don't need to get cocky. We don't need to get above ourselves. But please, just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. Because it has got a bit of change, and Tony's right. But just enjoy it. It's amazing.
I love it.
You've been listening to Guns and Yellow Ribbons, an Arsenal podcast by Arsenal fans for Arsenal fans.
If you like what we do, click on like, subscribe.
Follow us on Facebook at Guns and Yellow Ribbons and Twitter at Guns and Ribbons. And remember to rate and review us too.
We're gonna win the league.